So once we identify and locate a veteran buried here in Brunswick or the Maritimes, we'll coordinate with their descendants, the local legion, and local historical societies, and hold a graveside service appropriate for the time period. And we've held a number of these services all over the Maritimes, and we have many more to do. So keep posted, and if you'd like to attend one. Now I'm gonna, this is a special service we held here a number of years ago. It was for Edwin Clark. He served in the US Navy. Now what made this one special was 2 of his sons were in attendance. Now, both these gentlemen were well into their 80s at the time. Oh, excuse me. So I guess maybe you know, the good salt air kept Mr. Clark quite youthful. During the service, we will place a GAR marker on the gravesite. This is the Grand Army of the Republic, which was a fraternity for Union veterans. Confederate veterans have their own marker and have their own fraternity. And these markers are permanent. And then we then register the graves with the appropriate American authorities. So if you're ever walking, So if you're ever walking through a cemetery and you see one of these markers, you'll know this person was a Civil War vet. Now, Sarah, I'm sure most people know, and she doesn't really need an introduction. Now, if you're ever out for a drive in the area of Macadavic, head out Saunders Road. There's a monument that we put up there back in 2005, and it's located on the property that last I heard was still in the family. Now, her story is quite remarkable, and I could probably take up most of my time just telling her story, but there are many more, and I'm going to touch on a few of those now. Now, this is Private Aaron Adams, and he's seen here in the Brunswick militia uniform before the war. He was also a member of the 20th Maine, and he too, unfortunately, was killed during the Battle of Gettysburg on Little Round Top. Now we're trying to find out which militia unit he served in here in New Brunswick before he went south. So if anybody knows anything, any background on Private Adams, I would appreciate them passing on information to me. Now, this is Corporal Glazier Esterbrooks. He was born in New Brunswick, in Burton, New Brunswick, sorry. Now the Esterbrooks have a long history, both here in New Brunswick and in the state of Maine. In the mid-1840s, Glazier moved his family to the Esterbrooks plantation in Maine. Now, this plantation was a small community, like the name says, made up mostly of Esterbrookses and members of their extended family. Oh, excuse me. Now, according to their family history, Glazier was quite a strong, barrel-chested man from working in the woods all his life, and it was said that he'd pick up big barrels of salt pork in the logging camps to demonstrate his strength. Now Glazier, he lied about his age and enlisted along with his nephew and 2 of their cousins. And keep in mind, at the time, the age of enlistment was 18 to 45, and he was 49. It was also, according to family history, that when the nephew fell behind on long marches, he'd pick him up and carry him on his back and to make it to their camp at the end of the day. Now we have a Confederate connection with one of our fathers of Confederation, John Hamilton Gray, who was a very strong supporter of the South at the time, and he was also against the idea of Confederation. Now, John Hamilton Gray, he even defended the Confederate agents that had captured the SS Chesapeake off the coast of Maine when they were arrested and charged with piracy. Now, perhaps his support for the South had something to do with his brother, Andrew Belcher Gray. He was an engineer in the Confederate Army. Now, Andrew was not born in New Brunswick. He was born in Virginia. Their father was a British consulate, and when his father was transferred up to the Maritimes, Andrew stayed in Virginia and studied in engineering. And he didn't survive the war. He was killed when a boiler blew up on a ship that he was on the Mississippi River. Now here in St. John was Dr. John Berryman. Now he started out working in his father's business. They had a hardware store and a grist mill. In the late 1840s, he built his own grist mill to process corn. Around 1850, he sells his grist mill. He takes his money and he heads off to Australia to try his luck. He only lasted there a few years before he decided he was going to take up medicine, and he moves back to New Brunswick. And then his studies eventually took him to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and he graduated there in 1860. When the Civil War broke out, he had offered his services to the United States Medical Corps, and was even put in charge of an army hospital in
Oops, Troy, you froze.
as a surgeon of police before he got into politics, and was elected MLA for St. John, and he held that position until his death in 1900. Another doctor here from New Brunswick here was Dr. John Waterhouse Daniels. Now he graduated from Cambridge Medical School, and then he went on to enlist with the 47th Kentucky Mounted Infantry as an assistant surgeon. And in this case, this Kentucky regiment was a Union regiment. Kentucky was had both Union and Confederates. But anyway, after his service, he continued his studies at the University of New York before he re-enlisted with the regular American Army and was stationed in New York. Oh, sorry. My apologies. Okay. Yeah, he was stationed in New York, and he worked with the New York City Sanitary Commission, and greatly improved the sewer system and stuff like that to better the lives of the inhabitants of the city. Now, by 1875, he was back in St. John and set up a medical practice, and he too got involved with the New Brunswick militia as a garrison surgeon, and he made it to the rank of lieutenant colonel, I believe. And he got into politics. First got elected as an alderman with the city, and then in 1900 became the mayor. In 1902, he ran for federal politics and was elected as a member of parliament. And I think he won 3 elections. Yeah, three elections as an MP, and then he was appointed senator, and it was a position that he held until his death in 1933. And it's interesting to note in Fern Hill, these two doctors are about maybe 12 feet apart. It'd be interesting to know if they ever sat down and talked about their war experience. Now up in Rexton was Dr. Rufino Austin Delacque. Now, he originally was born in Spain and had studied and became a druggist at first before he moved to the United States, where he studied medicine at Harvard. Now, in 1864, he had a chance encounter with some Confederate agents when he was a passenger on the steam packet Roanoke off the coast of Cuba when they got boarded and captured. And after the passengers were released, he returned to Boston and then signed up with the 61st Massachusetts Infantry as assistant surgeon. And I kind of think that maybe his run-in with those Confederate agents might have spurred him to enlisting. But anyway, after his service, he and his wife who I'll note that was from Nova Scotia, and he had met her at Harvard, where she was studying nursing. They settled in Rexton, and to this day, there's still a doctor in the village in Rexton, and is one of his descendants. And pictured here is the historic home that was his home office there in Rexton. There are several more doctors from New Brunswick and the rest of the Maritimes, and they learned a lot of valuable gained a lot of valuable field experience, I guess you could say, serving through the war. And also note that they didn't all serve for the North either, but generally the ones that served for the South, they're across the water there over in Nova Scotia. Apologies to anybody from Nova Scotia. Now this fellow here, Josiah Sawyer Sox Brown. Now, Sox was also born in Burton. And if you're familiar with the Burton Courthouse is, they're just outside of Armucto. Their family farm basically started right at the edge of that. There's a cemetery there, and then their family farm started right there. But anyway, when Sox was about 10 years old, he went to live with his grandparents over in Maine. Now, they were his mother's parents. And one of the things we found quite interesting doing this research is how many direct family connections between here and Maine and the other New England states. Considering at this time, it was a long way to travel, by horse. But anyway, so anyway, it would appear that Sox went over to help out his elderly grandparents on their farm. But when the war started, Sox lied about his age and signed up with the 7th Maine when he was 16 years old. Now he turned out to be a pretty good soldier, because he was quickly promoted to the rank of sergeant. Now he survived his initial enlistment, and then he re-enlisted with the 1st Veterans Volunteers. And again, he proved his worth and was promoted to the rank of 2nd lieutenant. He even survived a gunshot wound to the neck in 1864 at the Battle of Spotsylvania. Now, at the end of the war, 1865, it seemed like the Army, kind of suited him, because he then re-enlisted with the regular Army, this time as an engineer, which took him up to California, and he worked on some engineering projects out there. Then he got out around 1867, and he tried farming for a bit, but Army was the home that he wanted, because by 1870, this time he was back in the 21st Infantry. And again, being a good soldier, he was back up to sergeant within a matter of a couple of years. Well, excuse me. He'd taken part in numerous campaigns out in the Western United States, and he'd even received a mention in dispatches once during the Modoc War, because he refused to leave his men, even though he was wounded, when they got caught in a crossfire. He chose to stay with his men and help direct their defenses. Now, by 1882, Sox was now a commissary sergeant. That's what we'd know as a quartermaster today. When he finally left the Army, he'd spent just over 20 years. Then him and his wife settled in Spokane, Washington, where he quickly got into politics. Seems to be a running theme with a lot of these guys. And he was part of the convention that brought Washington Territory into statehood. And then he served as a state senator for many years. And then, he finally retired and passing away in 1932. And you see in the picture there on the bottom, the tunic, it's got the rank on it there is a commissary sergeant. And then the stripes on the lower part of the sleeve indicate his years of service. And below that, you You'll see his campaign medals and ribbons that he'd gotten from attending Grand Army of the Republic reunions. Now this guy here, what could be any more Canadian than him? Jacob E. Carvel, who was one of the original members of the Northwest Mounted Police and took part in their famous March West. But before that, though, he had served in the American Civil War, fighting for the Southern Confederacy. He was originally from Newcastle, and him and his two brothers operated a wholesale and shipping business out of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Now, it would kind of seem that he had a restless spirit because he didn't stay in the business very long. And when the war started, he happened to be living in Greenville, Mississippi, where he enlisted with the 22nd Mississippi Infantry. And he served a year with them. Then he moved on to Virginia and signed on with the 18th Virginia Cavalry. And he obtained the rank of second lieutenant during the war. And after the war was over, next we hear of him is he was back in the North again. And in 1873, he had volunteered his services with the newly formed Northwest Mounted Police. Now, you could probably be safe to say that with his previous military experience, that's the reason why he was given a commission as a superintendent. And like I already mentioned, he took part in their March West. Now, after 3 years with the Mounties, he resigned his commission and moved back to Virginia and settled in Rileyville. And to this day, some of his descendants can still be found residing in Rileyville on Carville Lane. I'm not sure if any of his descendants have an impeccable mustache like that or not, but you never know. Now, another fellow from New Brunswick. Now, some people might recognize this name, Jonas Howe of the Howe furniture and cabinet making family. And the Howes, they come from a long line of furniture makers, and their products can be found all along, museums, historical homes, all along the Eastern Seaboard. Now, at the start of the war, Jonas was in South Carolina. Not quite sure why he was living there, but best guess is probably had something to do with the family business. Maybe he was learning some new techniques or acquiring some exotic woods. But either way, he enlisted with the Hampton Legion and spent a year in Confederate service. He even took part in the first Battle of Bull Run, which was the first major battle of the war. Now, after his term was up, most of the people in the Hampton Legion re-enlisted for duration of the war, but probably safe to say that he had seen enough of fighting because he didn't re-enlist, and he made her back to St. John and continued on with his brother in the family business. And the picture here is their storefront they had in the West End Market area of St. John on Germain Street. Now, this fellow was born down in Charlotte County, Horatio Nelson Young. Now, the Americans try to claim him as one of their own, but we've dug through the records and we know where he was born, and he's one of ours. And with a name like that, I bet you can guess he served in the Navy. When Horatio was about 18, he went down to Boston and signed on as a seaman on the USS Lehigh. In the fall of 1863, the Lehigh was engaged in attacking the forts in Charleston Harbor. And unfortunately, she ran aground. As kind of a sitting duck sitting there, she came under heavy fire from the Confederate artillery on the shore. The only way they could be freed was, attach a tow cable to another ship which happened to be the USS Nahant. But every time they attempted to pull the ship off the sandbar, cable would snap. According to the story, just as the captain was about to give the order to abandon ship, Horatio and two other members of the crew volunteered to make one last try. They climbed into a small rowboat, and under heavy artillery fire, they rowed over to the Nahant, dragging a line. And as a result of their courage, the Nahant was able to tow the Lehigh off the sandbar into safety. And on the 16th of April, 1864, all three of them were awarded the Medal of Honor for their bravery in saving the ship. Now this fellow here, he had a stump for a while. That's William R. Henderson, and he's buried in here in Fern Hill, and he has his own military headstone. Now, Mr. Henderson is African American, and originally he thought that he probably served in the Navy or with one of the U.S. colored troops that had been formed after the Emancipation Proclamation. But once we started into the research and digging through the records, we were able to show that he had enlisted with the 31st Maine Infantry, and we even able to locate his widow's pension records that confirmed his service with the 31st Maine. Now, what makes this truly an anomaly is the 31st Maine was a white regiment. I guess we could say that not all regimental commanders were adhered to the segregation of troops rule at the time. But anyway, after the war, he'd settled in St. John with his wife, Henrietta. She was a teacher, and she was born in the Fredericton area, and they raised three daughters. William was a barber by trade, and I guess he was known locally by many as the professor. Unfortunately, in January of 1893, while he was attempting to jump onto a horse-drawn trolley, he slipped and fell, and ended up, losing a leg, and he passed away because of the injuries. And on the 19th of January that year. Now there's more that's to the Henderson story that is worthy to note, and that's his daughter Anna, who went on first to become a teacher like her mother, then went to a business college, graduated from that. Oh, excuse me. And she went on and wrote the civil service examination for the federal government, where she scored the third highest results that year here in Canada. Then in 1912, she was hired on by the federal civil service, becoming the first Black woman to be hired by the Canadian government. She has a fascinating story as well. She went on, I think she retired in 1945, ended up, I'm not sure, I think it was Princeton for a while, working as the secretary down there. She wrote newspaper columns, wrote poetry. Yeah, it's fascinating story as well. Now this guy here, another resident of St. John, was Josiah Fowler. Now he was born out in French Village, and his family were United Empire Loyalists, and their land grant was along the Hammond River, and where the Holy Trinity Church sits today is on a parcel of land that was donated by his family. Now Josiah, he was a well-known blacksmith at the time, and he ended up moving to Boston. Probably like many young people at the time, he was looking for a better life. In 1862, he enlisted with the 44th Massachusetts Infantry, and it was just a short 9-month term regiment. And but after a short time, he received an enlistment bonus of $400. which was a considerable sum of money at that time. And with his money, he returned back to St. John. And first he went into business with another blacksmith, and they formed the Campbell and Fowler Company. And then it was around 1872, he'd formed his own company, Josiah Fowler Company. And his, I think at the height of his business, he had as many as 30 people working for him. And his workmanship was well known all up and down the seaboard. And his cutting tools, axes and stuff were top notch from what I've read. And there's collectors today, when they talk about Josiah Fowler, chisels and stuff like that. People that collect this stuff, they know about it. Another interesting thing, I'm not sure if anybody ever heard of the Maritime Singer 6. That was a car that was built here in St. John around 1913, 1914. Anyway, Josiah's shop built the axles and other components for this short-lived business, the Maritime Singer 6. Now, this gentleman here, he's down in St. Andrews. This is Private Charles H. Norris. Now, Charles, he was born into slavery on Christmas Day in 1844. After the Emancipation Proclamation, he had enlisted with the 43rd Colored Infantry, and he'd lost sight in his right eye from being wounded during the war. But now, after the war, he ended up settling in St. Andrews, where he raised a family of 6. And he worked as a cook at the Kennedy Hotel, which I believe is still in operation, unless COVID's shut it down. Anyway, now when we found out about Charles and went to locate his final resting place, we found out that he didn't have his own personal marker. But his name was listed on a family stone. So we went and applied to the United States Veterans Affairs for a military stone for him. But according to their regulations, because he's listed on a family marker, they would not provide one for him. In the past, we have gotten a military stone for an unmarked grave, and we were hoping we could do the same for him. But unfortunately, they wouldn't come through. So we raised money, and we put no personal marker in for him. Now, last year, we had plans to do a dedication service for Private Charles Norris and the stone, but unfortunately, COVID kind of threw a wrench into the works. But we're hoping that this summer, if regulations allow, we're going to have that graveside service and dedicated to him. And so again, please keep tuned for the date. And if you're able, we invite you to attend. Here in New Brunswick, we have the known grave locations of 108 Civil War veterans who returned home after the war, and about 50 or so in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Their reasons for taking part in this war are various, numerous. For a lot of them, they were already living in the States, following work, trying to build a better life. And perhaps they felt it was the right thing to do for their adopted country. In Josiah Fowler's, one of his letters he wrote to home to his brother, he'd actually mentioned that in his letter that, it was the right thing to do. He was living there, and it was the right thing to do. For others, it was an adventure. They were going off to war. And unfortunately for many of them, that adventure turned into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. For others, it was an opportunity to make money. Because of enlistment bonuses, they could make as much as $700. And that money like that could buy you a farm. I could go on and on, for there are lots of other stories, and that we've come across and uncovered. And that is why we put out this newsletter that we call Graves Matter. These men and women fought, they lived, loved, suffered, and died. And they're part of our history, and they should be remembered. So if you'd like to be put on the mailing list and receive this, or if you have somebody in your family that served in the war, we'd love to hear from you. So please, contact us either on Facebook or our email, 20th Maine, koi.i@gmail.com. And you'll also find our link to the website, our new website on there as well. And we post all our editions of Graves Matter on there, on both Facebook and the website. And if anybody wants to join us, same thing. Holler out, and we're more than happy to have you. All right. Thank you.
So Troy, we've got some, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we've got some messages in chat. I can read some out to you, or some comments.
Well, I just popped them up here.
Okay, yeah, you can go through them and
Roll back.
respond as you see fit. And if anyone wants to ask Troy a question by turning your mic on, please go ahead and do that too.
Nova Scotia's involvement in the war. There's there's a lot of interesting stories about Nova Scotia as well. There's from Margaret to everybody. Maybe sometime. I know it's this is the Brunswick History Forum, but we could probably give one on Nova Scotia too, if, at some point, if that's an option. Yeah.
I have a follow-up I can use on the mic. When you talked about the 4,500 people you locate, or you identified, would Nova Scotia be? Would most of them be Nova Scotians, or not most, but would be the biggest group be from Nova Scotia?
Well, I've never. I'm trying to think. Larry had broken it down once. Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. I don't know. I'd almost say most probably from New Brunswick. Lot from Nova Scotia. We're in the Navy. Yeah. That's a good question. I'd have to look that up and get back to you. But as far as I know I've seen it before, but I just can't remember.
There was the Chesapeake affair.
What's that?
The Confederates were up in Nova Scotia with a stolen U.S. ferry called the Chesapeake.
Yeah, they captured that off the coast of Maine. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, it was Chesapeake. Yeah, the Chesapeake. Yeah. Yeah, that was the Americans kind of stepped on British toes on that one, because they came they chased it into a harbor, into a cove up the coast. And the British didn't like that, because the Americans were in their waters, and told the Americans to get. Yeah.
There was a lot of Confederate agents in New Brunswick as well, and they actually raided.
Oh yeah.
a town in Maine, Calais, Maine, and most of them were Canadians that did it.
Yeah, yeah. They talk about the whenever they talk about the most northerly raid or the most northerly attack by Confederates, they always talk about the St. Albans raid in out Ontario, upstate New York way. But actually, the attempted bank robbery in Calais was the northernmost Confederate raid. Yeah, they probably would have got away with it too if they didn't have such a big mouth, because the American authorities knew they were coming probably before they even got halfway there. They talked about it all in the pubs in St. John and stuff like that, where they planned it, and they knew they were coming, so they were just waiting for them. Yeah, I can't think of the guy's name.
I think it was Brain, wasn't it? John Clibben Brain. And Parr, Henry Parr.
Oh, geez, I can't remember. The guy that his sister lived here,
Yeah.
and his brother, was it a brother or something like that? He was a minister. And,
Yes.
they were quite upset that he was planning this. So they probably the ones that tipped off the sheriff in Calais. Yeah, it's been a while since I read about that. I'm terrible with names. I have a hard time remembering names. But yeah, there's so many little stories, that you come across. There's even one story. There was these 4 guys. I was doing research, and I come across these 4 guys, and I think they were in the 15th Maine, and they were all listed as deserters, all in the same month. And they were all from New Brunswick. And I thought, well, that was kind of strange, because they'd already served 3 years and then re-enlisted. So they were all, they already proved that they had the mettle to face battle and stuff like that. But the more I dug into it, I found out that they'd received something like $500 re-enlistment bonus to sign back up. Then they were also given a 30-day furlough and ship's passage back to the city where they enlisted. And so their regiment was in Florida at the time. So these guys, $500 in their pocket, they were back up to Bucksport or someplace like that. Pocket full of money. They're what, a couple hours away from the border? Of course they took off. And they come back to New Brunswick. It was probably a spur of the moment thing or whatever, but I thought that was quite interesting. I can't remember their names right now. I couldn't understand why these guys already served 3 years faithfully in the army. Why would they desert? Well, $500 and you're almost home. Probably had something to do with it.
I'm not sure. This is Greg. I'm not sure if you saw the question on chat about diaries and letters. Anything that survived. I know I found a few in the newspapers, but have you guys ever found any? I haven't found too many. Haven't been looking, but diaries, are always a gold mine if you can find them.
Yeah. No, I did have a conversation on Facebook with somebody a while back. They had a diary of I can't remember the guy's name now, but they wouldn't part with it, or they wouldn't share anything with me. I couldn't convince them to photocopy or nothing, which is understandable. That's fine. I asked, they said no, and I said okay.
And I think a year or so ago, some materials from Dr. Merritt, who's from the Merritt family of Loyalist House. He was a Civil War contract surgeon, and I think some of his stuff came up on an auction site.
Yep.
right? But I don't know who got it. It wasn't us.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to bid on some stuff on auctions, Civil War related. There was just here a month or so ago, there was an auction down in Nova Scotia. It was a scroll that had a Nova Scotia, a fellow that was from Nova Scotia, dedicated his dedication to the service and his regiment and everything on it. I guess retirement scroll or what have you, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't win it. I tried to buy it, but someone beat me to the punch. They had a deeper pocket than me.
Troy, my name is Bernard Cormier, and I was a member of the Delancey's Brigade for 14 years. And I see some of our former members are also members of your 20th Maine Company.
Must be talking about Bruce and Colin.
Yeah, yes, Bruce and Colin. Is Peter Gilly still involved too?
Yeah. I ran into Peter, it was a few months ago now. I ran into him at the grocery store. But I think he's enjoying retirement.
Right. I was going to ask for those members that are buried in Fernhill Cemetery. Would the cemetery be able to provide us with the locations of the
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
burial sites, or do you have that information?
I do have them marked out on a map. But you go into Fernhill. You got to have their names, and they'll tell you where they are.
Yeah, I have their names that you mentioned tonight in your talk, so I'll follow up on that. My wife and I like to do that. We like to explore cemeteries.
Yeah, there's you send me an email and I can send you the list of, that was just a few that are in Fernhill. There's a Metz, there's an Orr, there's a De Weber, and a few more that are buried in Fernhill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Send me an email and I can provide you with their names. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Really great presentation. Fantastic. Well done.
Thanks.
Greg again. I put this in chat, but in case you didn't get a chance, I can't remember if it was anyone from your group or Delancey's, but once I remember someone spoke to our group and they were asked the question, what's it like to travel across the border with replica firearms? And I forget the answer.
Going across the border, going through American customs.
Well,
no problem.
Either way.
They're coming back. Sometimes it can get interesting.
Yeah.
The Americans understand the Civil War reenacting, right? And they say, "Oh, you're going down to here, or you're going there," right? But the Canadian side, it's a little different. You have to register your replica firearms with the Canadian Customs, and they give you a card
on the way out
before you go over, and it just makes it easier when you come back.
Well, you have to do that with a guitar too. So maybe they think that people might be buying higher quality ones. I know, you never take your guitar across the border without registering on this end. But yeah, I'm just wondering, it's not your everyday item, for Canada Customs, right? So
yeah, that reminds me of a funny story. What's that?
How about cannons? Taking cannons across the border.
Well, back in the early mid 90s, the guys from Company B used to come up and join us here. We'd have encampments at King's Landing or whatever, and they had a cannon and they brought it with them. And there was also another fellow had a little cohorn mortar, and it was the perfect size for a small pumpkin or a squash. So we put a little powder in that and pop off throw pumpkins across the field with it. But yeah, they haven't been up for a while because of it's hard now with firearms regulations for the Americans to come up. It's easier for us to go down there, but yeah, I don't think anybody's tried to bring a cannon up for a while.
Greg, again, I'm just looking at the chat. Someone's asked about, have you found many Acadians? I know I didn't have much luck years ago, but have you guys found many Acadians?
There's oh, there, well, let me just take a quick flip through here. There's LeBlancs. There's LeBlancs. Burrell. Flurd. Yeah. Yeah, if anybody has a family name that if they're interested, send me an email and I can look it up in our database and see if I can find them for you.
Right.
And you might learn something that you didn't know. That's I'm more than happy to do that for just about anybody.
Another one in chat, and it's from me. I just I have a feeling that's harder to find photographs of African Canadians or Americans who served, but maybe that's wrong. But I haven't, I was surprised, not pleasantly surprised to see that your photo of that gentleman from who settled in St. Andrews. But
yeah, Norris, yeah.
Yeah, I just, again, I haven't gone looking for them, but I just had a sense that photos of those guys would be kind of rare. But do you have any?
Yeah. No, no, I'd like to.
Yeah.
And I do have the other Greg. He provided me with some names.
Yeah.
Here a while back, and I'm trying to source them, to confirm whether they were from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, and their background.
That'd be nice.
But yeah, photographs. It's hard to come across any photo, especially photographs that are named to people.
Yeah.
Right. I do have. I found them online at the Maine State Archives. They had a pile of Maine soldiers from the Civil War. The card to visit, the little photographs that you'd send home to your folks, whatever. And they had several hundred, and I went through them, and I found, I think, 6 or 7 New Brunswickers and Nova Scotians in there. But those are the only photographs that I have that, directly that I know is, a New Brunswicker and served.
Right. You might,
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew, but the New Brunswick Black History Society, they're interested in anything they can find, but I think they have a display space they have now in Brunswick Square. So you might want to touch base. Ralph Thomas, you might want to touch base with them because it might be an opportunity to collaborate with them, and all more the merrier, right?
Well, I know Larry with the Charles Norris down there in St. Andrews. Larry was kind of organizing that, and he was in contact with them.
Yep.
And like I said, unfortunately, COVID kind of blew it all out of the water, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we're, like I said, we're hoping that we can get something going this year. Yeah. We don't want to let it sit for too long, because then I don't want to get forgotten about.
No. Anyone else with a question or a comment?
Yeah, just going through here. Okay, we answered that one.
There's one at the bottom.
Apparently my sister and niece and her boyfriend are on. Hi guys.
Hi. Yeah, there's a question about the Cajuns of Louisiana.
Yeah, I just seen that one.
Yeah.
Never really thought about it. We kind of like a direct connection to Brunswick or Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland as well. Found one guy. He was from Labrador and served in an engineer unit that was formed in New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
That's
another
a lot.
one, there was a young fella on his enlistment papers. Said he was born in Charlottetown and he joined the U.S. Navy in New York. And I think they had him listed as he's like 14.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what, my best guess is he was working on another ship at the time.
Hmm.
Cabin boy or what have you. And, serving in the U.S. Navy might have paid better.
Yep.
So he went and signed on. Yeah. Now go back to the Cajun, Acadian Confederate question. I've read before that General Beauregard was born in Quebec. Now I've read that somewhere years ago, and I can't confirm that, but I've read that before that he was originally from Quebec, or his parents were born in Quebec.
I think someone's worked on Quebec soldiers too, right? I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's groups up in Quebec and Ontario that do similar things that we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a part of our history that people don't know about, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's like I said, people kind of, why are you doing American Civil War? Well, it had a direct impact on the formation of our country.
Mhm.
Yeah.
True.
Troy, before people came online, you and I just briefly talked about Sarah Edmonds, and has anyone done anything recently on her? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. There is a movie, or there is a docudrama out on her. It's called The Unsexing of Sarah Edmonds. That was a CBC production. And I've tried, I had a copy and I can't find it. I think you can get it on Amazon. I think there's a few copies around, but yeah, that most of that was filmed. A lot of that was filmed here in New Brunswick as well. Yeah.
It seems like whenever someone publishes a book on women in the Civil War, she's at least mentioned, but I always felt that she needs a more in-depth study.
Yeah. There's several books that people have written about Sarah. I've got a couple here somewhere in my library of books that I've only started reading. I've got more books than I'll ever get to read, but yeah, I don't think I haven't seen anything recent. I want to say like in the last 10 years or anything written about it. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Troy, where was the monument to Sarah located again? I didn't catch it completely.
Saunders Road in Macadavic.
What's the last, Macadama?
Macadavic?
Yeah,
Yeah, Macadavic Lake. You look on the map in New Brunswick, find Macadavic Lake. Yeah, it's kind of a tongue twister word. Yeah.
can I get a copy of that somehow? Is that memorial?
Say that again?
A
Picture?
picture of the memorial? Can I get a picture of it?
Yeah, there's yeah, send me your email and I can forward one to you.
That'd be great.
On our Facebook page too, there's a picture of it as well.
Okay.
Okay, well, do we have, again, I don't want to chase people out of our meeting, but do we have any other comments or questions or suggestions for our speaker?
I know that Sarah Emma Edmonds did publish her memoirs,
Yeah,
and
Yep.
they should be available online at and not at Ancestry, but at one of the online websites.
the UMB library used to have the original just in the stacks. It might still have it.
It's available.
Was that right?
Used to, I'm not sure.
She married a guy from St. John too. Did you know that?
Yep, Sealy.
Yeah. We met back in like 2004, 2005. I can't remember when it was, but when we were doing the monument for Sarah on the family property, one of Sealy's descendants came, right?
Yep.
And he had a picture of, Linus Sealy,
Oh,
and you could definitely see the family resemblance between him and his ancestor. Yeah.
I have a question at the bottom of the chat about what's it take to get involved with replica gear and such.
It can vary. Definitely the most expensive thing is the replica firearm. If you're lucky enough to be able to find a used one, is a good way to go. Basic uniform. Last I checked, basic uniform. Geez, Greg, are you online? Do you know?
Great.
Have you looked it up? Or maybe it's not there. I know a couple $100 for a basic uniform, and then your leathers and stuff like that might be maybe another couple hundred. Talking about American funds too. There is some items you can buy here in Canada, but yeah, the initial investment it can be expensive. But generally, the way we work is, we have stuff that we'll loan a person for the day or whatever, with the understanding that we'll give you 2 or 3 years to acquire your kit, sort of thing. So you don't have to buy it all at once. Yeah, and so we usually try to have some extras available for for people when they're trying it out to borrow for the day or two, right? Yeah. But yeah, I remember you Mitchell there. Yeah, I can send you a link to some good websites for that stuff if you wanted to check it out. We're working on graveside ceremonies for this year. Again, it's COVID kind of hampers this, but there's I'm trying to think now. We got one in Hampton we got to do. There's 5 in the Fredericton area. Then down in Charlotte County, there's probably another half a dozen. And then up, if anybody's ever heard tell of Forest City, up along the Maine Brunswick border, I think there's 6 or 7 buried there. We just learned about another one up above Grand Falls this winter. Yeah. There's there's all kinds that we're gonna get to eventually. We just gotta play it by ear. Crowds can only be so large and stuff like that, and we don't want anybody to get sick. We don't want to anybody get in trouble for gatherings and stuff like that. So but keep an eye on our Facebook page. When this stuff does come up, it will be posted on there with the times and dates. And right now, that's the best I can give for what's anticipated for the summer as far as graveside ceremonies go.
Troy, did Linus Seeley, Sarah Edmondson's future husband serve in the U.S. military?
Not that we're aware of.
Because
Not
it
that
was
we're
a
aware of.
Confederate
No, I don't think so.
by the same name. Okay,
Pardon me? I got bad hearing. Sorry.
there was a Confederate by the name of Linus Seeley, which kind of struck me. Oh boy, what's this all about?
Oh, now that's something I didn't know.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
One of
I wonder-
the Confederate, one of the Chesapeake Raiders.
Yep.
Out from near the airport, wasn't he? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, yeah, he was killed in a barroom brawl. Sounds like the bad movie, right? I always wonder about that too. I mean, it could be the same family, but it is a coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of people had the same names. It seems like too, right? Looking through the records, and you type in a name like say John Smith, and there could be 300 of them, and then you have to work your way through, trace them back, and then sort out. Internet has made it a lot easier than let me tell you than microfilm at the archives.
Well, maybe we'll just see this time one more question from people, and then we might wrap it up. Before I just want to say before that question, you mentioned about Nova Scotia. I mean, the Historical Society has had many talks on other parts of Canada other than New Brunswick, right? We do, so maybe for next year, if you're interested, we could consider, you doing a presentation on the Nova Scotia side of things, right? I'm sure it would draw. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, do we have a final question of our speaker? Well, if not,
I'm going to say one more thing.
Okay. Yeah.
There, Greg. Reference Nova Scotia, and I can't think of the doctor's name, but if anybody's ever heard tell of Andersonville Prison,
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
notorious Confederate. Anyway, the prison doctor settled in Nova Scotia after the war
Richardson, maybe?
and practiced medicine. The
Yeah.
Confederate doctor that worked at the Andersonville prison.
Yeah.
Settled in Nova Scotia.
And you wrote a book
I-
defending it, didn't you? Didn't you write a book defending
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a big book defending it. Yeah.
Well, there's a story there. So I like on
Yeah,
behalf.
yeah. There's
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, Troy.
So yeah, we'll definitely put something together as far as Nova Scotia goes.
Yeah. Well, on behalf
Chris
of,
Riley. Yeah.
on behalf of the Historical Society, again, I just want to see, does anyone have a last minute question? Well, I'd like to thank people for showing up virtually. Sorry for any technical glitches. I know there was a problem we had with some out of province people who for some reason couldn't get into the meeting. So I'm going to have to find that out. I've used Zoom a few times, but I haven't had, that sort of problem before. So I'm gonna have to, I know Dr. Cheryl Wells wanted to get in, she couldn't get in. So there's some people from Ontario, unfortunately, couldn't make it in tonight. So we'll try to iron out that bug for the next time. And but thanks for showing up tonight and interesting comments. And it's a great group. We know that they do good work. And I'd like to thank our speaker and wish him and the rest of his group success and get through COVID and get back to normal activities. Just to remind people, next month, as we posted in chat, we've got Dr. Chantal Richard, another sort of military history story. What happened to the Acadians of Point St. Anne, Fredericton area, and during the 7 Years' War. And then there's other talks we've posted on our Facebook site for the rest of the summer. And the Canada Helps link. I wasn't able to get into it when Troy was speaking, but there is a link there on the chat, and also I think on our Facebook site where if you do ever want to make a donation, it's not just our group. There's lots of other groups listed on that Canada Helps site as well. But we certainly would appreciate it. And I again, have a great night. I'm going to sign off and have a great rest of the month, folks. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Good night.
Night.
Thanks again, Troy.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.